Welcome back to Coinscrum's Meet the Founder series. I'm delighted to be joined this week by Simon Cowell, co-founder and CEO at Zebedee. Welcome, Simon. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about Zebedee. Zebedee is a payments layer for virtual worlds built on Lightning. But before we dive into that, we always like to ask our founders, how they entered the crazy world of crypto, what you were doing before that, and what brought you in.
Yeah, well, I worked in traditional finance. I was working at my old university's endowment fund at Oxford University. And one of my roles was venture capital, picking VC managers. And it was very fortunate for me that I got us into Andreessen Horowitz, if you know those guys on the West Coast, and they were an early investor in Coinbase. So I remember very clearly the 2014 summer LP meeting when Brian Armstrong got on stage to talk about Coinbase. And that's when I started to fall down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Ended up leaving my old job and going full time into crypto.
Nice. Well, I guess it's still too early to decide whether that's a regret or not. But it's been a fun ride.
Well, I realize it's been 7 years now, so I must have.
All right, we're stuck here forever.
Longevity.
We're stuck here forever. So let's talk about Zebedee. Being built on Lightning. There's I guess anyone that's been in the space as long as you have, you've had all sorts of kind of angles you could have pursued. Why did you choose to go after the gaming sector and to build on Lightning? Yeah,
so for me, there's a lot going on in Bitcoin, crypto, blockchains. Like the pace of innovation outpaces any other sector. In my career, I've always been focused on businesses, like building long-term, sustainable, cash-generative businesses. With all the future tech that's been going on in crypto, like the first thing that stood out to me was exchanges, which is how I ended up at Bitstamp. Then while I was there, I was really spent my time thinking about what is the next long-term sustainable business that can be built in the same way that an exchange does, where you provide a service using crypto. And for an exchange, it's trading services, but there's more than just that. So when Bitcoin started to scale successfully with the Lightning Network, I realized that now Bitcoin can now be a payments processor. But I wasn't so enamored with the idea of just trying to replace fiat payments with Bitcoin immediately. Like the economy is too big and functions in a very different way. That's a really big apple to try and bite off. So for me, it was what are the new capabilities that are uniquely enabled by a global, digital, programmable currency. And for me, it was perfectly, gaming was the exact slot that fitted that. They're already digital, virtual, programmable worlds. And guess what? They lack a good means for transmitting payments to create economic activities in games. They're limited by, revenues are limited by, ads or, purchasing with fiat, purchasing subscriptions or in-game currencies. You can't actually have direct economic activity within and between games. So I felt that Bitcoin, with its upgrade of the Lightning Network, was perfectly placed to do that. So that's why we set about building the infrastructure in order to enable that.
Very cool. So just a little bit more about the product then, and your team, who you formed the company with, who's working on it, and tell us more about the product itself.
Yeah, well, so I have two co-founders. I mean, when I generated the idea, I thought, okay, I have this vision, but I come from more the finance side of things. I can run my own nodes perfectly fine. I know basic programming in Linux, but I'm not an engineer, and I'm certainly not expert enough for Lightning. So I brought on board a guy called Andre Neves, who had previously worked with Cowell Studios, and he's been trained by Chaincode. And it was in fact Chaincode who directly recommended him. So he's my CTO, and he is an absolute genius. He's built so much over the past year; it's been unbelievable. And then on the other side, I also know nothing about building games. So how do we build the plugins for games? So I knew of during my early days of Bitcoin research. Back in 2014, I used to play this game called Saratobi, which I'd found on Bitcoin. back in the day. And it's a simple one-player game where you've got this swinging monkey and you collect Bitcoin prizes. But it stopped after fees became too big. So it was built by a guy called Mandel Duck. So I knew him on Twitter, and he lived in Japan. So I just DM'd him on Twitter, and it turned out he was. I met him at Bitcoin 2019. That was the last one we were allowed to do before COVID, and he was up for the challenge as well. So he joined as the lead game developer, and so that's the three of us who make up different skill sets to make this successful.
Cool. Sounds like you've got all the bases covered. So. In terms of, you said that you're building the idea is that you enable an open network, so interoperability between different virtual worlds, between games, etc. So I guess that sounds like quite a narrow layer in kind of the whole stack that you're focusing on, and it's not necessarily everything you're building, although you might be building certain apps to showcase the product. So where are you at in sort of that build out process? Where do you start and stop?
Yeah, I mean, so we started off with building the APIs so that game developers could easily interact with, Bitcoin and Lightning Network payments. Mm-hmm. So we and we wrapped those in the toolkits that game developers are more familiar with as well to make it easily accessible. So that's kind of where we started, and we started off purely offering Lightning Network services. And custodial as well. Our platform is primarily custodial, and then from there it's more about integrating into other existing tech stacks. So we launched for the on the consumer side, we built a mobile wallet. Well, actually, Andre built it. It's been his kind of passion project. And the idea of the wallet that we built was we want to be the payment service in the middle that connects the games with fintech. We're that node in the middle. But what we also realized that where our market is the market of people who are yet onboarded into crypto, so it needs to be very easy for them to do. They need to not understand anything about it. So the Bitcoin wallet that we've built isn't a financial app in the way that other wallets are. It's more of a social gaming portal with a great UX that you can seamlessly interact with games and doesn't really feel like a finance app. So that's on one side, and then on the other side, it's really integrating into building our own stacks of games and esports tournaments and things like that. So on the on the actual crypto side, it is just plugging into the Bitcoin network, using Lightning.
Right, and you mentioned the payment side, but obviously the other kind of interest and excitement around what this could potentially do for virtual worlds and games is like the actual in-game assets themselves, and transferability of those between worlds eventually. Is that something that's on the roadmap that you've already?
So we think there's a huge chunk of activity that can just be bit off with having transferable value between the games, in a homogeneous commoditized way, by which I mean just Bitcoin. And I'll kind of talk about, maybe it's a good reason for me to talk about why we use Bitcoin and not other assets. And we don't yet offer NFTs. We may support things around like other coins and NFTs and things in the future. But what we've really focused on now is what is like the most commercially viable solution that we can offer to the mass markets. And we picked Bitcoin because it is, I think even now it's still at least 60% of the entire Bitcoin network. So if you're onboarding new people into gaming, it's not like here are all the different NFTs that you can have, and here's all the different yield farming you can do. Here's all these different separate coins. It's a reason why we didn't launch our own gaming coin, because it's not needed. The hardest problem that Bitcoin solved was a value transfer protocol. That is the hardest thing. It solved that problem. So it's the most widely accepted cryptocurrency with the biggest amount of infrastructure supporting it. It's got the biggest brand value for people who aren't getting crypto. So for us, it's first of all, let's find ways to have Bitcoin in games that can be used within that game and then taken out and used in other games, or used or even to buy a cup of coffee with, or even maybe even pay your rent if you're really good at games. So that is the first thing that we're trying to crack, and we think that's a very big near-term market, even though there's some extremely exciting things around in-game economies where you can trade items around and things like that. The problem when you start doing that, there's much more complex problems around getting games to recognize those assets between them, building a marketplace for, you know, a lot of assets where each asset is distinct and specific. That's quite a lot to ask for. So that's the reason why we've initially just started with Bitcoin, because we think there's a huge amount you can do just with that in the first place. And what we're really trying to do is crack into the new market. And I think we've got that with our latest game release. It looks like, you know, fingers crossed, I have a strong feeling that we're going to have the first, you know, breakout into the non-crypto mass market.
Great. We look forward to hearing about that. And I personally think, you know, that approach is both right and noble. If we look at, I guess the approach that many others take is the idea that people have to have these very dedicated tokens. And then their competitors will have a very dedicated token, and all you're doing there is building up, you know, a huge amount of potential friction, and, you know, new issues around kind of broader adoption, etc. So, you know, we've got this payments layer, we've got a base layer, we've got a potentially, if it proves, you know, scalable in the long run, the Lightning layer on top. And, you know, it's, I guess, quite refreshing to see founders that first and foremost haven't wanted a token so that they can maybe raise money and, you know, maybe make some money off the back of it. So interesting to see. I'm definitely keen to see more of that type of approach going forward. So, I mean, you said, we've obviously clearly mentioned you're building on Lightning. We had Samson Mao on the show a couple of weeks ago. He's developing their game, Infinite Fleet. They've chosen to build on sidechains, which I know is obviously a technology that he's you know, worked on very closely. Where are we at? I just think something like Lightning, you know, got a lot of attention, and then, you know, it's kind of been drowned out in the noise of, you know, activity over the last year and DeFi and all of that stuff. Well, can you just give everyone an update where Lightning is at in terms of development, in terms of progress, in terms of how companies building on it are collaborating to make sure that, you know, everything does remain interoperable going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you should probably have Lightning Labs on or something, or Breeze, because we're, you know, what I'm seeing at the application layer is that, you know, we haven't faced any problems with the Lightning network as we're scaling. You know, we're still, you know, personally, we're still in the low levels, but I think in January we did 100,000 transactions. You know, we're expecting to at least 10x that this month, and we don't anticipate any issues from the infrastructure. You know, because it is all, you know, built around, you know, the capacity of Lightning is, you know, is basically built around your ability to set up direct channels with, you know, end nodes that you want to interact with. For what we're doing, because we're doing, you know, everything that happens on a platform will probably be mostly custodial, and where it goes off, there you have Lightning Network for the interoperability for low fees. Like right now, we have, you know, big enough channels with our, you know, biggest routes that we face and our customers face, like, no issues. And to scale that, all we need to do is make those channels bigger and open more channels. So in that way, it's scalable. Certainly scalable in that way. You know, the network is growing according to need now. And the good thing about the Lightning Network is all the companies within it, we all seem to be quite close. There's a lot of companies springing up, but certainly companies that have actual activity, we're all quite close, and we're all collaborating to make sure we have the right amount of liquidity between us. We're also collaboratively helping develop new standards as well. I mean, there's I don't know how technical you want to get in, but there's sort of these LNURL standards which really make it much easier for customers to, especially like pay and receive transactions. You know, we're certainly on the forefront because we're like dealing with it live, you know, out there. You know, we're helping to develop those, and our developers are contributing. And you know, we're encouraging other companies to adopt the same standards as that grows. You know, there's regular roundtables of all the relevant companies to discuss, you know, the relevant standards, whether for either the network level or for the, you know, the wallet level, you know, to make sure that it grows in a sustained way. And right now, there's no. I like the Lightning Network because it's not. I don't know. It doesn't seem to have some of the, you know, more extreme maximalist behavior that you get from you know that can put people off Bitcoin. It's a lot. there's a bit more of a kind of Ethereum, unicorn feel, I would say, a bit more diverse, which is what I like about it. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, I mean, I think the development's going well, and the companies are all actively collaborating with each other, and no one's faced any issues. I think Lightning is going to be one of those things where because it is a lot of the activity is private, and held up in channels, it's going to be a dark horse that kind of creeps in, and then suddenly everyone notices it, which they will do at the end of this year, once like on-chain fees make, the activity, make off-chain transactions more necessary, kind of driven by demand. And we're certainly going to see it by the end of this year when exchanges start using the Lightning Network more, because there will be a need for them to.
Yeah, just briefly on that note, again, maybe it's slightly off topic, but from your visibility of how things are growing, do you think it is, in terms of capacity on the network and for exchanges to start using it for larger scale transactions, do you think that's feasible or looking feasible?
For large, it depends on how large you want to go. I mean, there's certainly been no significant issues with large transaction sizes. I certainly think that it will be more for transactions which become less economic on chain. So for large transactions, you may as well still send it on chain. Yeah. I think, unless you have some other reasons, like you need it to be instantaneous, or you want to do some kind of like new DLC contracts or something. Yeah. So I think it'd be more around exchanges will use it for small transactions, on and off exchange, which are less economic now.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So you mentioned that you've got an announcement coming up, a non-crypto engagement with a player in the gaming industry. What have your conversations? I mean, we've seen all that, the change of narrative and interest over the last year on kind of Bitcoin and crypto assets in general. I'm sure you've been knocking on those doors for some time. How have you seen the conversations change? Has that also people woken up to it? They're getting more comfortable with it?
Yeah, it has been quite amazing to see the change. Like we talk with game developers, convince them, hey, you should be using Bitcoin in your games, or even just using crypto in your games. And there's always concerns around that. I mean, oftentimes game developers have been told, hey, you need to put your entire game on our blockchain, and then we take a transaction fee off every activity that happens in your game, and that hasn't really happened. That hasn't really been the pitch that they've been looking for. Game developers are still focused on the bottom line, and also how does it work in the gameplay. But because what has happened is that people in crypto have been developing their own games, whether it be the Lightning Network games that we've been seeing in our community, or blockchain gaming. It's been blockchain gaming companies building their own games, which have tended to not get much traction, mainly because it's very difficult to get any traction with the game. What really worked for us was as the announcement, we actually made this announcement at the end of December, and we're launching it today. Was that we built an integration into CSGO, which is, I don't know if you've ever played Counter-Strike, it's one of the most popular long-running first-person shooter games there is. 26 million people per month. And we can do this because we can run our own, like CSGO, you can run your own servers and mod. It's it's one of the classic games for doing that. So we launching our own servers integrated with Bitcoin payments, so you pay to play, and your score is basically Bitcoin that you get in and out. And it's not high stakes gambling at all. It's more about having your points actually be some kind of value, and it's very low value amounts of money. And it's more about you have an extra, what I call skin in the game. Like when you can see your Bitcoin balance going down by even it's just like a few cent up and down every time you're shot. It like your adrenaline is just like pumping, and it's just like it just adds that layer of excitement that wasn't there before, when your score was just, there was no consequence for winning or losing. It just it's really insane and engaging. And like when we describe that to people, and when we show it and play it, like if people from the gaming industry are like, oh wow, this is like, I'm going to get back into CSGO now. So we're launching that today. I don't know when this is going out, but today, Friday, the 5th of February. And launching the service, so you can go to our website, check it out to get on those servers, and play. It costs very little to do so, and I think this is that my gut instinct and my hope is that this is going to be a pivotal moment in the history of Bitcoin, when we have a mainstream application where people are using Bitcoin.
That's fantastic. That's really great to hear. So very excited to see that roll out, and people to hear about that. When this goes out, probably won't be the first time we've ever heard about it. But yeah, I guess people don't mind having their heads blown off, but they get mighty angry when they lose money. So it's interesting to see their reactions. So look, great to hear about all of this and where you've got to so far. So congratulations again. What's on the roadmap, and what's the plans for the next year? Have you have you gained funding? Have you kind of bootstrapped this?
We've taken in some some seed funding from VCs to get going. We're going to market, and our product's hitting the market. We're first of all on our own side launching this integration with CS:GO. We plan to build out maybe a few other game modes where we can do this with games that are already out there where you can run your own server. Most of our effort is going into supporting third-party game developers to build on our platform. And then we're also, encouraging other financial institutions to, integrate their users into our platform. As the new economy and the new banking system, having your users with Bitcoin, having access to this new world via us, is going to be an important part of our strategy. I think that this is the first time where the gaming industry has the possibility to actually build real economies within and between games, and because given the size of the gaming industry already, which dwarfs all other entertainment, and given that games have no physical limits, I think the size of this economy could be like enormous. Like the amount of transactions we see in a short space of time, like over a 2-hour event, we can see 10,000 transactions, and that's just with a few hundred people. My hope, but also my worry, is that our growth is going to be very large, very quickly. So we are in the process of ramping up to raise some more money in the summer. For anyone who wants to support the future of the new payments and banking system, it is my belief that very soon, like, people will earn their first value by playing games. Like that's going to be the first place you go to. And right now, it's the Zebedee infrastructure and wallet will be the portal to that.
Okay, excellent. Good to hear. Well, look, it's been great speaking to you, Simon. Really looking forward to see, especially after this announcement, how things transpire over the next year or two. And I agree with you. I think this is a fantastic opportunity and very exciting. Yeah,
well, if you're free at the weekend, we can come and shoot it out. I tend to get killed by everyone.
That's all right. We're launching our Coinscrum virtual world soon, so we can do a games night there. We can do
Sounds perfect.
And everyone can come and watch.
Perfect. All right. Awesome.
We'll see you there. Thanks a lot, Simon. Cheers.